English final in this second CICAE tournament of the year. We are now going to present the jury. They are going to present the rest of the jury, and then I'm going to briefly present the president of the jury. And of course, congratulations to both of the teams.
Welcome to the second pre-university debate tournament of the 8th League of Debate CICAE Universidad Camilo José Cela. The judges who will accompany us in this debate are Teresa Millán, speech and debate trainer at Train and Talk. She has extensive experience in the world of school and university debate, in teaching and parliamentary simulations. Daniel Medina. Daniel Medina is a second-year student in the double degree program of Law and Business Administration and Management at Carlos III University of Madrid. He has participated in 5 editions of the CICAE League and was a champion in the 6th League. He has taken part in municipal and international tournaments, such as the first Spain II debate tournament, where he was the best speaker. Currently, he serves as the vice president of the debate club at the Carlos III University of Madrid, and was recognized as the best speaker in the club for the academic year of 2022-2023. Sara de la Orden. She's part of the debate club of the Comillas Pontifical University and has been a participant in numerous tournaments and United Nations models at school and university level. She is currently a student of Law and Business Administration and Management with Business Analysis. Ana Urda. Ana Urda is a Law and Criminology student at the CEU San Pablo University. As a debater, she has been champion of national debate tournaments and leader in numerous parliamentary simulations. Ana Izaguirre. Ana es estudiante de biotecnología en la Universidad Francisco de Vitoria, miembro de la Sociedad de Debates de la UFV, debatiente y juez habitual del circuito universitario, destacando ser semifinalista en el III Torneo de Villa de Madrid. Ha juzgado más de 10 torneos escolares. Nicolau Samillán. Nicolau Samillán is a student of the double degree in Business Management and Artificial Intelligence at ESADE, with more than 5 years of experience as a debater in academic and moon models. He was 4 times winner of the Best Speaker and award in the CICAE Debate League in Spanish, finalist of the 4th and 6th edition of CICAE. And finally, Blanca Hidalgo de Cisneros. Blanca Hidalgo de Cisneros is student of the European Comparative Law and Maastricht University. She won at the 6th CICAE tournament along with the international tournament Chile-Spain. She is also delegate of the European Law Students Association of Maastricht, and she is the judge in Carlos III University since 2022.
Now it's my turn to present Elena Fernandez. He is the one who is going to preside this final. He is graduated in engineering from the University of Vigo, and currently he works at Telefónica. He is passionate about debate and has been chosen as Best Speaker of Spain in 2021 and 2022 by the Spanish University Debate League. He is, of course, an idol for all of us who are in the debating world, and for me it's a great pleasure to have him as president of this jury. So good luck to both teams, and see you in 1 hour and a half.
The question in debate is, should the Spanish government ban cell phones with internet access for children under 14? The audience can tweet with the hashtag LigaCICAE UCJC. invite you to follow the social networks of the tournament at Liga Debate CICAE, where you can find photos and announcements of the debates. Reminders. We remember that it will suppose a warning the positive or negative mismatch of between 8 and 15 seconds with respect to the established time of each intervention. During the debate, I will make time indications. When there is 1 minute left, I will raise my finger. When there is 30 seconds left, I will close my hand and then indicate a countdown from 10 seconds. Please have the captain of each team come forward to in favor and against drawing. Best of luck to all and let the debate begin.
Kung Fu Panda in favor and against? Two reverse. Okay?
Just like the sun that quickly slips through this hourglass, a child's attention span is brief. Cell phones are the main cause of this, acting as a constant distraction and taking focus from education. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carolina, and I'll be introducing today's debate with my team, which consists of Erika, Elena, and Irene. We're present here today to answer the question posed: should the Spanish government ban cell phones with internet access for children under the age of 14? To which our group answers a firm and resounding yes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, indeed. We'll defend this position with our thesis, which states that the Spanish government should ban cell phones with internet access for children under 14 because the ban's benefits cannot be covered by alternatives. In turn, we'll support this thesis with two arguments: an argument on benefits and an argument on inefficient alternatives. Before beginning with explanation of such, we'd like to expose our plan of action. Our team's ban will be first placed on cell phones in all Spanish schools because the controlled environment will allow for the measures equal enforcement. Then will be gradually expanded to allow students to get fully used to the measure. Once the student is 14, there will be gradual restriction to transition from the ban. In the case of ignoring the ban, the student will be removed from the school to ensure that the punishment disincentivizes the students from using their cell phones during the school hour at the time. Knowing this, I'll now begin explaining our arguments. On our first argument of benefits, we'll be sure to prove how the ban on cell phones is very much needed in schools because of the psychological impact that phones have on children under the age of 14. This can affect their academic performance by causing distractions and lack of concentration. With continuous notifications, a lure of apps, and persistent need for entertainment, teenagers and children will feel the need to check their devices constantly, leading to addiction. We'll demonstrate how the banning of cell phones will improve students' academic performance as well as motivate struggling students to complete their studies. Moreover, prohibiting phones in schools would additionally improve safety for students by reducing cyberbullying and harassment, because why should we put a child's safety and well-being on the line when there's an obvious way to prevent this? Lastly, banning phones in schools also has the potential to improve a child's interpersonal skills. This is because face-to-face interaction facilitates constructive understanding and resolution of conflicts. This is proven by the 2019 study from Bridgewater University, which divided primary school students into two groups. The first group had access to phones, and the second group did not. While the first group was allowed cell phones, showed a higher degree of conflict between pupils, those who had no access to phones showed a greater ability to resolve conflicts. And therefore, banning phones will provide children with two of soft skills: communication and conflict management. Now, with our second argument of inefficient alternatives, we'll focus on how a ban of cell phones in schools is the only way for us to gain these benefits and prevent the negative impacts. We'll further prove how this by explaining the ineffectiveness of three alternatives: phone restrictions, raising awareness through education, and parental control, and how they do not cover the benefits of banning cell phones. Firstly, we'll demonstrate how phone regulations still mean children will be able to use their phones in their free time, which means causing distractions and affecting their mental health. Equally, we'll prove how raising awareness about negative impacts of the abusive use of the internet is not enough. And finally, parental control is ineffective. This is supported by the University of Central Florida's study on the effectiveness of parental control, and they found that most parental control apps have loopholes, like being able to avoid restrictions on incognito mode, and are ineffective in protecting children from explicit content, harassment, or online sexual solicitations.
All this being said, given our current situation, there is no way this question can be answered with anything other than an outright yes, as we'll prove with our benefits argument and inefficient alternatives, always taking our thesis into consideration, which states that the Spanish government should ban cell phones with internet access for children under 14 because the ban's benefits cannot be covered by alternatives. Thank you.
Kintsugi is a Japanese theory based on rebuilding ceramic plates from broken pieces of ceramic. At this moment, we have a broken society, and as the Japanese do with their plates, we need to rebuild society from its pieces, not breaking it more. My name is Miguel Garrido, and today, with my team, I will be presenting how prohibiting phones is not the solution to control internet addiction in child's aged below 14. My team and I will do this through three main arguments. First, the inconvenient use of internet is a symptom, not the sickness. Second, the disruptive effect of banning mobile phones. And third, the importance of mobile phone internet access in today's society. The first argument states that addictive phone use, especially among those younger generations, is not the sickness, it's only the symptom. The sickness is the lack of education on proper use and lack of attention at home, which leads to children seeking comfort and escape through social media, especially when they lack the necessary tools to research for solutions. And a study made by BMC Psychology in 2022 states that anxiety and depression lead to increased phone addiction. By banning phones with internet access, we would only be fighting the symptoms. Not that long ago, children were addicted to televisions instead, spending the afternoon with their eyes glued to the bigger screens. However, as time passed and technology advanced, that addiction passed to the phones, and children started watching less and less TV. This only shows that it's not the phone itself which is the problem, since the issue came long before the internet was worldwide. But it's instead the approach of younger generations and the lack of education the problem. This is why prohibition will lead nowhere. It doesn't treat the illness. While concerns about potential risk associated with mobile phones for children under 14 are valid, advocating for prohibition might not be the most effective solution. Prohibition is costly to enforce and regulate effectively. How would the government ensure there is no misuse in the house? Well, the government can't. What about the recent shift to online learning styles? We cannot deprive children from new learning methods, as these are the methods that they will have to use in their lives. Similarly, a ban on mobile phones might drive children to use them secretly, bypassing any regulatory measures and exposing them to even greater risk. The second argument is about the disruptive effect of prohibition. What can it really do? Well, it's going to shift those prohibited to illegal use. It has been evident through cases such as alcohol and tobacco that even extreme measures such as banning and prohibiting doesn't have a great effect. Evidence of this is the RTVE news from 2023 that states that in Spain, 35% of kids between 12 and 14 have consumed alcohol, and from 14 to 18, 74% have consumed either one or both. Then it's not effective. For last, we must consider that our world is becoming more globalized, by the second making it crucial for children to become digitally native from a young age. Today, the world is accessible through the internet, and it is key for children to grow up in a world where they understand how to use it correctly and safely. And banning access to the internet will not raise awareness among them. Evidence of this is the 2030 agenda of the UN by Digital Tech, where they state that a key point is quality education that needs to be achieved through digital technologies. So as mentioned in the beginning, as the Japanese do with their plates, we need to reconstruct, not demolishing more what we have. Because if we break things more, we will get to a point where we cannot reconstruct nor construct. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Erica Russell, and I'll be the first refuter for the team completely in favor of the question posed in today's debate. Before constructing my own arguments, I'm going to refute some of the opposing team's arguments first. Now, they bring us an argument about the inconvenient use of the internet. And they talk about how there's a lack of education, there's a lack of tools to research their problems, and that this is the real issue. However, this would clash with our ineffective argument, our ineffective alternatives argument, where we talk about how education programs are already implemented. For example, education to reduce cyberbullying. And this is simply ineffective, as I'll go on to explain in our argument. They also say that depression causes children to become addicted to their phones, just like seek solace in social media and other things. However, this clashes with our argument because the use of phones leads to an increase of cyberbullying cases, and this evidently leads to higher cases of depression, anxiety, and a plethora of mental health issues. So really, does depression cause children to become addicted, or does addiction to phones cause children to become depressed? Now, they also have an argument talking about the disruptive use. Now, they say that this ban is similar to bans like the bans on cigarettes, the bans on alcohol, and how they're not effective. However, we'll prove how a gradual ban is the solution. It'll start in schools and it'll expand, and we'll talk about the benefits, the undeniable benefits that can come from this. And lastly, they also talk about how in a globalized world, it's necessary for our children to understand how to navigate technology. And exactly, the key to our ban is the gradual ban. Now, because there's going to be a gradual ban, at the age of 14, there's going to be a gradual re-implementation of technology to make sure that these kids are not lost in a world of technology, and they'll be aware of how to use it and things like that. Now, I'm going to start to construct my own arguments. First, we have an argument of benefits. We will talk about how the ban, especially in schools, is necessary. Firstly, it will improve academic performance. This is shown in a 2016 study from the University of Louisiana in Texas, which examined 91 schools that have a phone ban. And the graphs in this study show students divided in quintiles. The first quintile has students with the lowest academic performance, and the fifth has students with the highest. Now, because of this phone ban, the students with the lowest grades increased their grades from 10 to 30%, and the rest of the students increased them from 5 to 20. Therefore, banning phones in schools significantly improves the lowest achieving students' scores. And why is this so important, you may ask? Well, that is because 14% of students quit high school. And the main cause of this, according to the European education area, is because they struggle to learn and pass subjects. By banning these phones, they have the potential of pushing these students and motivating them and making sure they make it to tertiary education, resulting in better job opportunities. Furthermore, banning phones in the classrooms would improve student safety by limiting the risk of students being harassed through text, film, or posted on social media without consent. A collaborative study from the University of Trent and McMaster and Dayton shows how students from grade 3 to 5 in possession of phones are more likely to be perpetrators or victims of cyberbullying. Since children have access to earlier on in their lives to these phones, and cyberbullying cases increase every year. A solution to this, according to a study from Harvard expert specialist Emily Bordeaux, studied the impact of a ban on phones on cyberbullying cases and confirmed that students felt safer in the classroom with this ban implemented. Governments must ensure a safe and positive learning environment, protecting their students' well-being. Finally, face-to-face interactions facilitate conflict resolution and communication, and a ban would promote this. As my introducers mentioned, children's interpersonal skills will be improved. Yes, your question.
What is the plan to teach children how to use the telephones effectively if in schools, the learning environment, they are not able to use them at all?
Well, let's put this into context. In schools, do children use phones as a learning tool? No, they use laptops, they use tablets. We have projectors. These are not phones. These are technological devices that will be used in a school setting and for educational purposes. So that's how we would do it. Now, we're going to move on to my argument of inefficient alternatives, where we talk about how the only way to ensure these benefits is through a ban. The most common alternatives are phone restriction, raising awareness, and parental control. First, phone regulations have been implemented already. They discourage using phones during class time. However, they're allowed in breaks and free periods. This can pose as a distraction for students, according to the Journal of Applied Cognitive Psychology. Students who possess a phone during the school hours retain less information from their lectures and do worse in exams. There's also a problem for phantom phone signal, which is increasing. This is when students think their phone is ringing when it actually is not, and this is a growing problem for, according to mental health professionals. Now, we have education, another issue to tackle. The opposing team might try to tell you that raising awareness is enough. However, ladies and gentlemen, it's already happening and it's not working. The 2021 Spanish Educational Law in its first article has a provision of education that helps students recognize, prevent, and react to cyberbullying. Now, there's been an increase, according to El Español, of 37% in cyberbullying from 2022 to 2023. Now, the education is not working. And lastly, parental control is also ineffective, as stated by my introducer, because of its many loopholes. So, the answer to the question posed today is a firm and outright yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Vega, and today I will be debating why we are completely against the notion of banning for complete the use of mobile phones with access to internet for those that are younger than 14 years old. I will begin doing so by rebuttaling some of the arguments presented by the opposing team, and then constructing some of our own arguments. I will begin by speaking about the first argument suggested, which is that the ban's benefits cannot be overruled. However, we wish to speak about the importance of the real issue. We understand that phones can pose an issue, but the real one goes behind lack of attention at home, or the escapism found in children because they lack the happiness provided by friends or family in school environments. In fact, we also wish to further speak about the fact that we will be moving to other technologies that are even more developed and potentially even more addictive than mobile phones, even if we ban them. This evidence, posted only 5 days ago by David Pierce, a consumer tech expert, speaks about the Rabbit R1, which is an AI-powered gadget which is going to replace phones in the near future. The addiction will only grow worse, and this is because the real issue lies not just in the use of phones, but in what's behind it. Now, we must also speak about the dangers that they will potentially face after they turn 14. They speak a lot about cyberbullying, but we also know that the real issue needs to be tackled through different types of measures, because when a child turns 14, they will be just as susceptible to cyberbullying. I also wish to point out that the tobacco bans, as stated in the evidence by my teammates before, are largely ineffective. We understand that it is a gradual increase into the ban, and we agree that a gradual movement into a ban, into regulation is important. However, we do not believe that the ban is the ultimate solution. Now, we must also that a lot of mental diseases, as mentioned by the opposing team, are genetic. A study by Stanford Medicine University stated that 50% of causes of depression and anxiety, especially those related to eating disorders, are 50% genetic, and the other 50% due to family psychological relations. None of the listed reasons, by the way, were by technological devices. Your question?
You say we should gradually regulate, however, regulatory measures have proven not to work. What do you think about this?
We wish to empower the regulatory measures, not just leave them as they are. We understand that there is an issue and that we have to tackle it, but we do not believe that an outright ban, that such radical measure, will be the proper way of fighting it. Instead, by bettering parental controls and bettering the filters, we would be able to reach the solution better. Now, onto my own arguments. We must first speak a lot about the real cause behind this, the sickness, and the fact that just by treating the symptoms, the addiction, the mental health problems, we are not truly going to the root of the problem, which is the fact that the government and parents and schools are not coordinating in building a safe and healthy environment for their children. We believe that education is the only possible way to truly combat this problem. There are many different articles stating different ways that have not already been implemented, and as well, an evidence suggests by the Association of Spanish Pediatrics in 2023 that most scientific studies done to the date have not demonstrated any benefit of actually banning the phones outright. We must also speak about the fact that banning the phones outright altogether will only lead children to search for either alternatives, as I stated in my argument beforehand, or it will lead them to try and surpass these bannings, whether it be by buying phones without consent of parents, using their parents' phones, or potentially using an older sibling or a person who is older than 14 years old as provider. Now, one of the evidences by a psychologist and director of London LSE states that banning kids from having smartphones misses the point entirely, which relates as well to my first argument. We believe that a collaborative approach is the only way to do this. And yes, we must better education. We must better in schools. But one of the points suggested was the fact of soft skills not being taken back by the use of digital devices. However, we believe that that is an issue more of education than the actual phones. Should we not be focusing on bettering the way that we are teaching these soft skills to our children? And is it by banning the use of phones, removing them from having certain digital skills that they will also need to have when they turn 14? If we were to say the analogy, for example, parents do not let their kids outside of the house before they turn 14 because it's too dangerous. However, the day that they turn 14 and they leave the house, how are they supposed to navigate? How are they supposed to know what to do, where to go? How are they supposed to know what things they can do, what things they can't do, if we have just released them to the wild? This is why gradual and regulation and gradual exposure is important. First, you walk out with the hand to the child. Then, you let him go alone, but at a curfew. Then, you know what companies he has, until ultimately he can use it all by himself. We also wish to speak about, again, the inconclusive proofs of any psychological reports. However, we are fully against the banning of the use of phones. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Elena Fernandez, and I'm the second rebuttal of the team that stands completely in favor of the question posed in today's debate. First, I'll move on to the opposing team's argumentative line and rebut their argumentative line, and then reconstruct my own argumentative line. So the opposing team's argumentative line is based on 3 arguments. One based on the inconvenient use of the internet, one based on disruption, and a last one based on the importance of having phone internet access nowadays. their first argument of inconvenient use of internet clashes with both of our arguments, which I will now explain how. First, they speak that the lack of education is the problem, and that the actual problem is the internet. However, this clashes directly with our inefficient alternatives argument, where we prove that education is still there, but it's not working. For instance, since l'embloe has been applied, which tackles in its first argument the intention to eliminate cyberbullying, making it that important. 37% has been an increase of cyberbullying has taken place since the educational program was put in place. Therefore, we see how education is not being effective. Even so, the opposing team says that how will the children learn how to use phones in their normal lives and education and technology? However, we've never said that it cannot be combined with education. Education will still be a part of their lives. However, they won't have access to the phones to be able to prevent a dependency that will arise as a continuous use of phones that will impact their academic performance, their safety, and their interpersonal skills. This leads me to my next point, which is that they said that internet is the actual problem that increases addiction. However, this clashes directly with our first argument of benefits, where we see that there will be a greater availability of phones than this is because of a greater availability of phones than other devices. For instance, there are laptops, there are iPads that are actually controlled by the school, and that here the internet access would be regulated by the school, and therefore this point of the argument falls. And then we have that they say that the phones lead to that they lead to depression, that they don't lead to depression, it's actually external causes. However, if we're seeing that phones are precisely decreasing their academic performance, decreasing their safety in school by increasing cyberbullying cases, why is it precisely a problem of phones? Because by having phone access inside the schools, you can text or you can videotape and then use it against them in educational environments. And therefore, these are the things that are contributed to higher depression. Therefore, the phones is a direct cause of depression in students. Then they say that it cannot be controlled. However, by ensuring that our ban is first placed on schools, which is a controlled environment, with students and with constant and regular inspections, we ensure that this ban is confidently and consolidatedly carried out. Your question?
What is the plan about new technologies that are arising that will cause equal addiction or mental health problems?
Well, if these same technological devices prove to have a negative impact, the good thing is that because they do not have access to phones throughout their first 14 years of life, they will learn to not be able to access these phones and these devices because of the negative consequences which they will have learned throughout their whole entire educational career. Then they have a second argument of disruption, where they say that this ban would not have a great effect, such as the same way that alcohol is banned, but it's still drunk by teenagers. However, this is merely speculation. There's no causation nexus between why alcohol ban does not work. Why does that mean that a phone ban would not work? For instance, weapons are prohibited, but they are not. But they are effectively banned because nobody uses them here. And then they speak how gradual regulation would be the solution. However, we have proven through our second alternative arguments how gradual regulation would not work. Why? Because phone regulations have been proven that to increase distractions, even only having possession of phones inside class is already distracting to the students by decreasing their academic performance, as my first rebuttal has proven. And therefore, any other alternative like education, like parental control, we have proven to also be ineffective. And therefore, if the phone is not working and is causing these detrimental consequences on kids, then this is the only way to cut down these negative effects. And then they have a last argument of the importance of phone internet access, which causes directly with their first argument of benefits. And they speak of the need for globalization and the need to become aware of the technology that surrounds them. However, we agree. We're not saying they shouldn't. However, we need to learn how to use this technology appropriately and responsibly. And this ban of phones would ensure that this responsible use is obtained. Why? Because they will develop the habit of not having phones during the most important years of their cognitive development, and therefore they will learn how to use other tools for research, other tools for the uses that are precisely causing more detriments right now and therefore we will prevent a dependency and an addiction that is precisely what the opposing team is arguing against. And again, they will have other devices at their disposal, like iPads and laptops. And again, this would be regulated by schools, again, limiting the internet access to these kids. And then we're simply not cutting them up from the world, we're simply teaching them how to navigate the world we live in. And therefore, there are three argumentative lines. First, going back to my own argumentative line, we have proven how the benefits of a ban caused by increasing academic performance, especially motivating the slowest students, by increasing their safety, by reducing cyberbullying, by increasing their interpersonal skills. All of these, which are detriments of phone access, cannot be covered by inefficient alternatives, and that is why we defend the phone ban. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Contreras, and I will be the second refutation of the team against. Firstly, I would start by refuting their arguments and further constructing our arguments. Firstly, I would like to state that they are saying to ban completely cell phones on schools. However, I would state that, okay, it is true that if cell phones are banned, it will only shift the addiction of cell phones towards other devices, because the problem here is not the extent use of mobile phones. The problem here is why kids use mobile phones, why they use it. Have you ever questioned that? It's because they lack the emotional stimuli that parents, friends, or a school makes them. And we understand, as the team in favor stated, that right now, education is not enough. We agree with that. That's why we need to educate more. But banning phones is just getting rid of all the positive consequences of phones. For example, we mentioned alcohol, and they refuted that. However, they did not, because alcohol has no positive effects. Tobacco has no positive effects. And even though it is banned, it is often used. Imagine cell phones being banned, not only would that increase cases of illegal use, but only increase cases of unrestricted access to minors. I would also state, as Maria Zavala, expert in digital literature and citizenship, stated that an access to internet, a gradual access to internet, is better for the kid, because we are essentially absolving, if we ban phones on schools, the government is basically absolving the problem for themselves. It is simply pushing the problem to parents, and parents can't regulate this. If thus, parents have tried to regulate this, but they can't. However, if banning phones on schools that is in a restrictive environment, it will only cause more problems in the long term. For example, a study made in PhD in communicative science stated that parents are not able to regulate kids at home. And if they ban kids at home, then if they ban cell phones on school, then parents are not going to be able to either regulate, to either educate the kids. In fact, in this statement also states that parents are aware of the problem, and we understand that they are aware of the problem. That's why we need to make regulations that work. And in fact, as the team mentioned, they mentioned banning phones will reduce all consequences. But we stated, okay, if we ban phones, then other devices would take its place. Then we should ban all devices then, right? Because a computer and an iPad can do the exact same thing as a phone. If kids don't have a phone, then they'll use other devices and they can do the exact same thing. I would also like to point out the fact that they stated that guns are not used. However, I would say that guns are used. People, imagine killing a person is unconstitutional, but it is still done, right? And basically, if we do not teach the kids that killing is a crime, they will just commit more. That's why kids need to know and stop criminalizing the cell phone, because we haven't taught them how to use it and how to be aware of this problem. That's why we need to educate them. I would like to point out the fact that the team has stated we should ban phones altogether, right? However, I would like to point out the fact that phones have positive effects. For example, a policy banning phones will make it impossible to draw on the many benefits of phones. A blanket policy would just reduce all effects of phones. For example, the internet use on whatever, because a laptop. Your question, please?
Don't you think that any risk that is involved in by the use of phones already outweighs any potential positive benefit that you might present right now?
They are saying that negative effects outweigh the benefits. However, we should see that even though you could argue that the negative effects oppose the benefits, we could also argue that benefit effects oppose negative effects. But we don't want to argue that, because what we want is to reduce all negative effects and only leave positive effects. Why would we want both negative and positive effects? We only want positive effects. That's why in a banning, we are getting rid of both. But we don't want to get rid of both. We want to only get rid of the negative effects. And such positive effects are such as neurodivergent people that cannot be able to learn for themselves. In a school, many of the people are the same. However, I would state that there are many kids that have disabilities, like autism. And with phones, essentially phones that are everywhere, that they can put on the pocket, they can essentially learn as they go. I will now finally point out the fact that prohibition in recent studies has not worked. For instance, if you prohibit phones, you will only increase the kids' desire to use the phone. And the New York Times has an article about this. In 2023, they see that banning phones, there are very few rigorous studies that show that banning phones are actually good for teens. Thank you very much.
Judges, opposing team, and assisting public. Good afternoon. My name is Raquel Picasso, and I will be taking the lead at concluding this debate. The motive presented has generated a very fluent and dynamic debate, which has caused many points of discussion. Firstly, they presented two main arguments about benefits of the ban, presenting psychological harm and academic performance, as well as safety and interpersonal skills. Also, as their second argument, they presented inefficient alternatives such as restriction and parental control, to which we responded by stating clear points of the real issue is the lack of attention at home, and it would cause a shift from phones to other gadgets, which would worsen the situation, increasing the addiction. Also, another point is that depression lays under real-world reasons, such as eating disorders, bullying at school, and even genetic components. And lastly, educative issue that soft skills aren't implemented properly together with technological skills. Our main arguments were, firstly, that the addiction to phones is just a mere symptom and not the illness. The phone is not the reason, it's not the illness. Children will find an alternative. Therefore, it must not be treated as the illness. It should be treated as the symptom it is. The actual illness is the lack of education and the lack of attention they're given because they have no alternatives. They have not developed the critical thinking they need under the ages of 14 to find other alternatives to escape from this. As a second argument, we have stated that the prohibition is vastly worse and it would be costly and hard to regulate in private environments, as well as it would be very hard for online education, which is very useful for neurodivergent individuals. And lastly, the world is very interconnected nowadays, and it is very accessible through internet. And lastly, that children must learn how to use it in order to be connected and live in the real world. To watch, they refuted that education programs are ineffective. Once again, that education is not effective and has actually been proven to not work, and that weapons are effectively banned, as well as other things. To watch, we refuted that banning fully will shift addiction to other types of gadgets. Education should be strengthened, not eliminated, and that unrestricted internet access will be fully harmful. Therefore, now that we have demolished, let us build something better, like this. Thank you.
No kid's attention span should be this short. It should be this long. Good afternoon, my name is Elena Fernandez, and I will be concluding today's debate by demonstrating how the other team's arguments fall while ours remain standing. First, they brought an argument about, well, let's call it about how it's a symptom and not a solution. In this argument, they brought different points, one of them being lack of education. To this, our first rebuttal said that this clashes directly with our ineffective alternative argument, since we already have classes and education on phone use. However, they're not proving effective. Our second rebuttal added on to this by saying that there will still be education on phones. They just won't have free reign over it. No child should be attached to the hip to a phone from birth, but they can still learn about them. Therefore, this point of the argument falls. The second point of the argument was about how a phone does not lead to depression. To this, our first rebuttal said that this clashes with our benefits argument, since can it be said that it's not depression that's the cause of phones, it's phones that is the cause of depression, because as we say in our psychological argument, it causes cyberbullying, and it causes students to have lower grades because of a lack of distractions, so they don't get the academic validation. Therefore, this point also falls. The last point within the argument was about how the ban isn't the solution because it can't be controlled, and to this, our second rebuttal already stated that it would be in schools that it would be regulated because it is a controlled environment, so this would largely help in the control of this ban. So, therefore, this entire point falls. Their second argument was about disruption of prohibition, where they mentioned how alcohol, for example, is consumed by minors. However, to this, our first rebuttal said that it would be progressive, the ban would be progressive, therefore this would be seen to with rules. And our second rebuttal already said that this is a speculation. For example, firearms are also banned to children and most don't have it. Therefore, this argument falls. Their last argument was about the necessity of phones because of globalization. To this, our second and first rebuttal said that it would be gradual, and our second rebuttal added on by saying that this clashes with our benefits argument because first they must develop and learn how to use technology, and then they will have developed interpersonal skills, which will be good with the whole social aspect of it. And she added on by saying that they have access to other tools, such as newspapers, or maybe even laptops or tablets. Therefore, this argument falls. As for our arguments, they rebutted the arguments of benefits by saying that phones are actually the symptom of the problem. And to this, our first rebuttal said that it's not. We already saw with the rebuttal that cyberbullying is a huge problem, therefore this falls. And as for our education problem, they said, how will phones be used to help in school if we don't have phones? This was a question that was posed. To this, our first rebuttal answered that we don't need phones, we can use school-regulated technology as well, and therefore this argument stands. Our last argument was one of inefficient alternatives. Not much was said about this. There was no proof of how these alternatives wouldn't be just as efficient. Therefore, this argument stands, and thank you.